Hey all, Pixel here at Improbable Garage, and we're going to light up this van a bit. On this van, we've got the stock headlights, which are stock now 70s style headlights, and the orange fogs. The headlights suck. There's just no other way to describe them. Sealed beams are not great, and, you know, vintage, these are basically the nicest ones that Sylvania makes, but they're still not great. The high beams aren't bad, but the low beams are terrible. I put those fog lamps on a while ago, but I never got around to wiring them up, so I haven't been able to use them. So I want to get those wired. That's one of our goals for today. The other thing is I got to do something about the light levels from this van. They sell a bunch of different LED headlights, but I found a couple of videos online. I'll link them below if I remember. Basically talking about all the different ones that are out there, and so many of the ones that are out there. One, there's so many that are just ugly and don't suit the van, so that eliminates huge categories. But the few that look like they'd more or less, you know, look okay on this, most of them are terrible in one way or another. There's only one that this place recommends, and they sell most of those brands, so they have no reason not to recommend the other ones. Are the ones that Holly makes, and they're like $179 a piece, like each. So we're looking at $360 for 2 headlamps, which is a lot of effing money. I'm not ready to do that. Holly, if you want to send me a set, put them in and I will tell you how good they are. But barring that, I need a little bit more light, especially when I can't have the high beams on. So I bought a couple of spotlights from Harbor Freight, and my plan is to mount them down in that opening in the lower spoiler, because these don't really suit the 70s look on the van, so I'm going to kind of hide them up and back there. This isn't a forever solution. Eventually I probably am going to get those Holly ones, but when I've got some more money available, or when they come down in price or something. But I need to make mounts for them, and I need to wire them up. So yeah, those lights I've got to get those wired, and then we're going to jump to the back of the van where I've got a couple of another thing. So back here I've got reverse lights. They do work, but they're not super great, and the window tint is so dark on the back doors that often I really can't see well with those reverse lights. So what I did was I picked up these again from Harbor Freight. These are lights, like little spotlights intended to go in like wheel wells, or under, you know, basically like to light, you point them somewhere to light up an area near the vehicle. Because what I'm basically going to do is mount them like that, more or less, down here. They'll be pretty subtle, and I'm just going to wire them into the reverse light circuit so they come on with the reverse lights. I'm also going to tap in under the dashboard to the wire that goes to the reverse lights and hook it up to a switch, so I can either have the reverse lights come on when the van's in reverse, or I can turn the lights on. That way, if I'm, like, say, loading something or whatever, I can have additional light back here to make that easier. So those are our plans today. Hopefully we'll get to all of them. This should be pretty easy. It's just a matter of mounting these, running the wires, and tapping them in, because these are LEDs, so they're going to pull so little power I don't have to worry about relays or anything like that. The fronts are going to be more complicated. Since I'm going to be pulling off panels to get at least one of these lights, I've decided I also have a wiring kit to put a trailer light on this. So I'm going to hook that up at the same time. I have a hitch for this. I've had it forever. I just need to grind it down and clean it up and mount it, or I need to give up and spend the money and buy a new hitch. But for now, these I was going to do when I put the hitch on, and I was actually going to mount them to the hitch, but that's not happening in the near future, so I'm going to do this now. And we are done here, and they are working. Let me shut them off, and then I'll show you everything I did. I haven't yet wired up the switch in front to turn them on manually. I just wanted to get all the stuff done back here. So I got the wiring for the trailer wiring. This is the kit, by the way. Kurt Kit 55338, fits G-Vans from 87 to 95. This just clips into the stock wiring here, routes up through there, routes across here, routes down here, clips into the stock wiring here, and then you've got your connector. I'm not impressed with the amount of wire that I have. This is not gonna really plug into a trailer well, but it might be okay. Worst case, what I'll do is get a mount and mount this down, you know, in here somewhere and get an extension piece. But for now, it's at least got trailer wiring. I'm gonna zip tie these together. I realized I'm out of my little zip ties, so I can't do that right now, but these are gonna get all zip tied together. I did use the zip ties that came with it to secure the wire along the way so that it's not just flopping around, and it's especially secured here to the ground so that this can't get yanked to like and tear all of this wiring. So that was that. That was nice and easy. The lights, like I showed before, I was going to mount them here, but you can see I drilled the hole and there's a ridge right here, so the light with one screw wasn't sitting properly. I would have had to have added a brace in the back to hold the other end, and then they might have been tipped down too much. They don't really fit well in this corner because I would have to drill for the wire and then drill 2 holes for the 2 mounts, and it would overlap the plate in a way that would just become so many screws to take out to get the plate out. So this is actually sharing the bolts with the plate, so there was no additional bolt holes needed. These are 14s. The only 14s I had were not long enough, so right now they don't have these little pads behind them, which I am gonna get longer bolts and put in, because right now the wiring's a little bit pinched back there. It's not terrible because they're off the edge of the plate, so there's a little bit of space, but I'm gonna install these just so that the wiring is completely carefully not damaged. You can see it routes through and you can route it out the side, but I have to get some longer screws first, and then it joins together and goes in the same hole that the light wiring goes in. Under here, the ground just comes over and grounds out right there. I just wanted it to ground to the body and not the bumper, just in case there's any bad connections between the bumper. Originally, I was going to follow this wire here, which is the plate light, bring it all through there and bring it up through here and attach it to the passenger light. But the grommet that this wire uses way in this corner, it's not the kind I can share with another wire, and I was going to have to drill another hole and put in another grommet. And this is going to change again, one when the bumper goes in and one when the hitch goes in. So what I ended up doing for now is instead running the wire down along here, and it just pops up here, is under this plastic piece, goes in the tiny gap right in the corner there that it'll be totally hidden by the carpet, comes up and then attaches to the reverse light over on this side. Yeah, it just comes up and attaches to the reverse light on this side. I'm using cheap crimp connectors instead of these fancy solder connectors, just because, again, this stuff may change. So I was not gonna be too precious about it when I know there's modifications coming later. But that's enough to get this all done and working, and this little wire is basically not even noticeable when the doors open, and it's going to be completely invisible when the doors are closed, so that's fine by me. So I'm not going to get everything into tonight because I just got back from dinner, but I'm going to try and get these mounted up. They're going in this here. There's right where the bumper mount is here, the lower panel bumps up a little bit, or bumps down a little bit, I guess. I'm going to try and mount it there. I made myself up some spacers to stick underneath, and then I'm going to use a combination of that and washers to get it more or less centered in this opening, and I'm going to try and get them in the same place left to right. I'd love to tuck them right up in the corner, but the bolt that's under here that holds, that's part of the bumper assembly, it's going to prevent that, and that bolt is too big to use in any way with the mount that these have. So I'm just gonna try and kind of figure it out. The spotlights are in, they're wired up. I think you probably saw the testing on the time lapse, but yeah, I haven't put the button in obviously, but obviously aiming needs to happen and whatnot, but they're nice and bright. The main wire here I had to splice and shorten. I took out like 11 feet of it just because these are designed to go, you know, this lighting kit is designed to be multi-purpose for any vehicle, any place, and my distances are so short I started looping up all that wire and then realized it was dumb. So that got shortened. The relay is mounted here. I labeled it so I'll know what the heck it is, because there's going to be another relay here as soon as I wire the other lights. And it goes around to the distribution block and a ground up here, and there's a fuse which is also labeled. This all, I need to drill a hole in the firewall and run it through. There's no convenient grommets that I could find, and this whole thing, I don't want to add more wiring there if I can avoid it. I'm going to slit this somewhere and slide a fourth wire through it, which is going to be the trigger for the other relay for the other fogs. It's going to get, that relay is going to get wired to the battery and everything just like this one is, but it's going to draw power off another circuit to kick the relay, just so I don't have to run yet more wiring in and out of the firewall for no reason. Yeah, I'm also going to change this light switch, which is going to involve new ends, so in the process this will get shortened up to whatever's convenient for it as well. And that's it for now. I'm very happy with that. Hey all, another day. It's actually been a few days since the last half of this. Just busy, weather, everything. It's I don't know if you can see the sweat on me. I haven't literally done almost nothing in this garage except try and find a couple of missing things, and I'm already sweating. Did get some work done on the garage. The solar heater is now no longer attached to that door, which, you know, I didn't really need it to be heating up the garage any more than it already was. And I got the keypad for this door working, and I put in a compressor switch. So now I don't have to go all the way over there to turn the compressor on, which will save me a bunch of hassle. It also means I'm less likely to leave the compressor on, or almost certain not to leave the compressor on, because I wired up this switch so that the compressor is on the same circuit as the overhead lights. So the overhead lights have to be on, and then I also have to flip this switch to get the compressor to come on. And if I turn off the lights, the compressor shuts off as well, which means at the end of the day, if I remember to shut the lights off in the garage, I also have remembered to shut the compressor off, which is good because I keep leaving the dang thing on, and then like days later, I'll be getting in a car and I'll hear it running in the garage and realize that it's been eating our electric bill for no reason. So I'm gonna try and get these lights wired up. Last time I got it working enough on that switch. So what I need to do now is feed that switch through the dash, or through the firewall. I need to drill a hole and then wire it up to the dash. I'm going to cheat for the fog lamps a little bit, and I'm only going to run one additional wire in with that out through the dash. For the fog lamps, I'm going to use the same power and ground as this, but the fog lamps will be on their own separate fuse and relay, which will be on their own circuit, but just the trigger for the fuse is going to be shared with this circuit just because it saves me running multiple wires for no good reason. I mean, realistically, I could grab the power and ground from inside the dash and only use 2 of these wires, but this harness is already all wired up. It would take more effort to cut this up than it would to just reuse it the way it is. So yeah, I got to drill a hole through the firewall, and then I got to cut the end off of this, fish it through, and go forward from there. You're not going to be able to see bugger all. I'm either going to be arm deep in this end or arm deep under the thing. So I'll catch you all once I've got that hooked through and have gotten to the next step. Alright, we're done with the inside the car stuff. There's some of the wiring I cut off that harness. This is the additional wire. Thing fell. That I slit the sheath, fed it in. That was kind of a pain in the butt, but fortunately I had like 2.5 feet of sheath I had to do that with, because there's the rest of it that I cut off. But now, here's what I've got. This is my spots, the ones that are already in there. And then this is going to be the fogs. Nice and simple. I will be putting some labels in here, but haven't obviously yet. But yeah, nice and simple, 2 little switches. It was pretty easy to wire up. I just, like I said, I split the ground and the power for this, since this is just the trigger wire. For the other circuit, it doesn't matter that the feed for the switch for the trigger is on a different circuit. Though it will probably confuse me if I ever have that fuse blow why none of my front lights work. But anyway, this is all wired up. It's really hot. I'm actually having trouble thinking clearly because I'm not used to the hot yet, or at all. But I need to figure out what in here of all of this stuff is the reverse light wire, so that I can tap off of that with a switch, so I can make it so I can turn the reverse lights on with a switch as well. That switch is going to go in this panel over here. Yeah, but I think that's going to be a wiring harness. Like, I'm going to have to go find a wiring diagram or something, because that'll just be way easier than trying to like hunt through and test all of this. So for right now, I'm done with the dashboard side. This means the spots are completely done. Those are all wired up, everything. The fogs now have a trigger, but don't have anything of the rest of the circuit yet. So I think I need to do those next, but holy crap, it's hot. Hey all, another day of the wiring work on the van, and I'm already sweating like crazy. I was just doing a little bit of poking around under here because I wanted to figure out where I needed to do work. So these wires are the ones for the reverse light. Blue is power, and then green goes to the lights. This hooks up to a switch on the upper side of the column you can't see. Originally I was just going to tap these, but then I realized this is keyed power and I want to be able to turn those lights on in the back whenever I want. So I went digging around and I found the power takeoffs on the fuse box. So I'm gonna do a power takeoff on those, stick a fuse in it because I don't know if those are fused or not, so I'd rather just err on the side of caution, and then tie that into this wire. I'm going to try and use one of those tap clips here. Normally I would avoid those, but if I can avoid cutting this wire to splice into it for such a minor thing, I think in this case it's actually more warranted than cutting the wire and splicing into it. And then I'm going to put the switch up here. So this should all be pretty quick and easy. And I don't know if I'm going to work on the fogs. Because, again, I'm sweating like crazy. Went to Cars and Coffee this morning, and it was lovely for that, but the temperature has just skyrocketed since then. So, yeah, I'm just going to get to work. I'm not going to try and set up a time-lapse. There's no good place to set up a time-lapse in here, and so I will catch you afterwards. So it's all wired up. I tapped off the power takeoff over here, put a fuse in line, ran that up here. This is my switch. And then ran back over, there's a grounding block there. And then I tried using one of those cheap little tap things. It didn't work like they never do. So I ended up just cutting the wire and splicing it in. So it now works. So this switch over here is now my reverse lights, which lights up all 4 back here. They still work normally, but this also just means I can flip a switch and I have light behind me, like if I'm loading stuff in or whatever, trying to hook up a trailer once I get the trailer hitch on, that kind of thing. So yeah, nice and easy, happy with that. So at this point, all the lighting wiring that I'm doing is done, so I can now put the dash back together. And then the only stuff I have left, so now at this point, all of the wiring for the switches and such is done. So I can put the dash back together because that side's all done. I still have to finish the rest of the lighting for the fogs, but I think I'm going to be done for today because I think I've lost like a pint of fluid already, just sweating. So yeah, I'm going to clean this up and then I'll come back to that another time. I lied, it's not as hot out here as it is in the van. So I decided to keep working on the wiring. I'm getting closer, but I'm not done because I grabbed the wrong connectors, so I can't finish everything. But this is what I have done. I now have the relay for the fog lamp all wired up. We've got the ground, which is going to go right to the screw that mounts it. We've got power going to another fuse thingy in there that hasn't got a fuse in it yet. We've got the wire that goes from the switch, and then we've got the 2 wires that go out to the fogs. Everything's been heat shrink connected and has been labeled. The 2 fogs are stuck together in the same piece of heat shrink tubing just to keep them together because they're both red and the power wire is red, so it's easier to avoid ever confusing them if I ever have to take this relay out if they're connected together and labeled. So these right now just kind of go down and dangle, but once I get the right female bullet connectors, I bought the male ones by accident, I will be able to hook those up and then finish up neatening up the wiring. So this, I've already put the hole for the screw in. This is going to get screwed in right next to the other one. And then I'm going to neaten up all this wiring in here a little bit. And then I think that's going to be me calling it for the evening because I don't feel like going out and buying more connectors right this moment. I think I'm going to go inside and get a cold drink. So yeah, it's a little messy in here right now, but I'm going to be able to neaten this up significantly once I know everything works, because everything is routed sensibly, even if it looks a mess. So these 2 lights going to the fogs run right alongside the wiring for the other lights, so that'll all be able to get zip tied into a neat little package. Same thing with the wiring that goes over here to the block. That's wired alongside this, so that'll be able to get neatened up. So I should be able to make this look pretty darn presentable pretty easily in here. The only slight hassle is just having the 2 battery cables run here is a little bit of a pain just because of the way they're looped. But I should be able to make this look pretty neat and clean in here. Everything's all nice. The hole in the firewall I still need to deal with. My plan actually, I haven't had any luck finding decent grommets lately, so what I think I'm actually going to do with that is just pack it with seam sealer and basically run that around the wires, because that'll seal up the hole. Once that solidifies, that'll be a hard rubber, but a little bit of flex, which is exactly what you'd want in a grommet anyway. And that should be fine. I can always pull it out later if I need to run more wires. But yeah, I'm happy with that. That's reasonably clean. Obviously, I'd prefer another connector that went on the bottom of the relay, but they just didn't have any conveniently at hand, and I wanted to get this done. But this is all pretty neat once it's all hooked up, so I'm not too worried about that. So yeah, I'm literally going to put the screw in that holds this in and shift some wire around just a little bit so that it all lays flat, and then I think that'll be it for today. All right, hey all, it is later the same night. The weather's gotten decent, so I came out here to work a little bit more. I also got the one missing connector type that I needed. So at this point, all the lights, let me shut this off. All the lights are wired up and working off the switches. I just got the fogs in, so if I flip all my switches on, we've got spots, fogs, and reverse. I did realize I need to change those switches so that down is on, not up, because when they're up, the LEDs shine perfectly in my eyes. So that was a design error, but here we go. We've got the amber fogs, we've got the LED spots. They're all going to need a little bit of adjusting, but that's something I'll take care of. And then back here we have the stock reverse lights and the bonus lights. I do have both confession to make, and I'm going to put this out to you all, see if you can figure this out, which is I tapped in to the continuous power on the fuse block and to a ground under the dashboard to run to the switch, and then from the switch that runs to the wire from the connector for the reverse switch that goes out to the lights. So basically the power goes into that connector, and then when you put the car in reverse, the wire that comes off that then makes the circuit and goes out to the lights is the one that I added onto to turn on all those reverse lights. They work perfectly off my switch, no problems, doesn't cause any issues. I put the van in reverse and it blows the fuse immediately. A pixel from the future interrupting here because I figured out what happened. So the switch has this little light on it that lights up to tell you it's on. And what I realized is happening is that light has to have a circuit built into the switch. And the simplest way to build that circuit is to have it so the power, it goes from the ground through the light out the switched power, so that when you flip the switch on and power is fed in, you get the circuit. The problem being, when I put it in reverse, what's happening is power from the fuse box is going through the reverse switch into the line, back feeding up into the switched power here, and then going from there to ground, and basically it's shorting out via that LED. I'm like 90% sure that's what's going on here. So that's why every time I put it in reverse, it pops the fuse, is because I'm creating a short to ground through that LED. So what I need to do for temporary fix, I think, is just pull the ground wire off this switch, and then I won't have that extra circuit there. The light won't light up, but I won't have that circuit there, so it won't kill the power. And then I need to either replace this switch with one without an LED in it and put a separate indicator for the circuit being on, or I need to put a diode in the circuit so that the power can only feed to the through here in one direction. I'm not sure which is the better choice, but for now, like I said, I'm just going to unplug the negative, and that should solve this problem of me popping the fuses. And that'll still allow this to work. It just means this light won't light up, which is fine. That's not a big deal. So we're going to call this job done there. I've got my front lights working. I've got my rear lights working. I've got my indicator switches all working. I've got this one little problem I need to solve that was just due to me not thinking through how the circuits were connected. So I think that'll be it. I will talk to you all later. Goodbye.